Right, understand. That's what we started early. Gary, can you hear us yet?
Yep.
Yep, there you are.
Hello.
Hey, Steve.
Mount Rushmore, and they have, what are those? Are those F4s?
That's the Navy outfit. What are they? The
Blue
They're
Angels.
Blue Angels?
Blue Angels.
Yeah. I think the model of the airplane is maybe an F4. It's not a recent picture, is it?
No, I don't even know where I found it. I put it up there because we live about 3 miles from Hill Air Force Base,
Ah,
and in fact, every other year the Thunderbirds do a show out there. They did one this every June.
mm.
We can sit out on our deck and watch the whole thing. So it's
Oh,
pretty
that's
cool.
pretty neat. Pretty neat place. I've only been, well, in the last 50 years, I've been to one air show at Miramar a couple, 3 years ago. And oh, that was great. It was a great show. It's really good to see those air shows.
Is it true that Miramar has lost the Top Gun school?
Yeah, I think it went somewhere else. I forget what they call it now. Yeah, it's not, Top Gun is not there anymore. I think went back maybe somewhere in the Southwest or somewhere like that. I don't know. Yeah.
So how's the calculus going, Gary?
I knew you were going to ask me that.
You knew I would. You haven't done
Well,
a
to tell you the
thing.
truth, right to the right of me is a stack of stuff I printed out that you sent me. Okay.
Uh-huh.
I looked at it, did a cursory look at it, but I haven't really, I kind of put it on the back burner a little bit. I've got the book, I got everything,
Well, that's good.
but I have to be motivated at this point. My motivation has to increase.
So I can't shame you into it.
Yeah, like I say, I was dreading this meeting. I thought, oh man, I'm going to have to answer to my teacher, Steve, on where I am in my calculus. And I was getting really nervous about it. So
Well, trust me,
all I have to do is say thank you, Steve, because you put in a lot of time and effort on it. I guarantee, before I die, I will delve into it much deeper than I have.
it's entirely up to you. I'm here to serve.
All right.
So the goal is to review Calculus 1, or do you want to go beyond that?
No, I don't want. I just want to understand calculus. And Steve gave me a great overview, and I have a much better understanding of it now than in all the year that I took it, or semester, or whatever it was that I had to take it. So,
If I can put words in Gary's mouth, he kind of wants just a calculus appreciation. You know, he has a rough idea what a derivative is. He has a rough idea what an integral is. He kind of wants to know maybe how they're related, how they lead to other things. What does calculus underpin? You know, there's so many things that calculus forms a basis for. You know, all the solution of partial differential equations. You don't do that unless you've learned a little calculus.
Yeah.
You know? You don't do quantum mechanics without having learned a little calculus. You
yeah.
can't do physics at any level without calculus.
In fact, it's interesting because I took calculus when I was going to Riverside City College, and then calculus is not really what I want to say. What's the word? You don't have to have calculus to take differential equations. So I took differential equations when I went to Cal Poly. So that was kind of interesting. And I was having a conversation yesterday with one of my friends. I was talking about when my grandfather died. And I lived with my grandfather and grandmother for like 2 years. And I was going to Cal Poly at that point, and I was in differential equations. If I can learn how to speak, I got it. Anyway, my grandfather, and this is the way I want to pass away. He was shaving in the bathroom in the morning, and he just passed over and had a heart attack, and that was it. Never sick really a day in his life, but just was gone. But the amazing part about that, I was going to Cal Poly, 20,000 students. Somebody came into our differential equation class, went up to the teacher, told him the situation. The teacher came back to me and said, you got to get home right now. And now Cal Poly from Riverside was, I don't know, 10, 15 miles. So I was saying it was amazing how in this huge college, somehow or other, they got to me in a differential equation class and told me my grandfather passed away. So that blew me away at the time. So anyway.
Well, I think that's remarkable on a couple of levels. One, that a math teacher would show that sort of sensitivity.
Well,
Most
yeah.
math teachers I had were colossal assholes.
Well, this guy had like no personality, zero. I mean, it was all.
Oh, okay.
It was all blackboard on the stuff, writing equations and this, that, and the other, and here's your assignment, and that was it. This guy had no personality. He wasn't a Mr. Skeel, put it that way.
You've given me something to think about. I can't even imagine how you broach the subject of differential equations without having a background in calculus. I really can't.
Well, I had taken calculus.
Okay.
And like I say, my teacher showed me pity because he gave me a D. He should have given me an F, but he gave me a D.
Yeah, I've been there. I've gotten some pity grades in my life. My favorite pity grade was up at UCLA. I had a class in.
Can you see me?
Yeah, hi, Harry.
Oh,
Hey,
great. First time in a long time. Anybody can see me.
Yes. Now you're getting to be a pro now.
Only with your help.
Didn't help at all this time. You got it all by yourself.
No, we had a trial. You sent me
Oh, right after the last one. Oh, maybe. Okay. That was so long ago, I forgot it. But you're here. That's the important part.
How's the health situation, Harry?
Oh, I've had a setback. I had all these tests done, and I got to go back to the urologist because I got some kind of obstruction between my kidney and my bladder, and I'm also urinating little clots of blood within the last week or two. So they got to check that out. I don't know what that is. All the other tests, like the cancer things and all that, the PSA is like 0.9 or, everything else seems normal except for that little flow between the kidney and the bladder and little clots of blood.
Don't.
I don't know what the heck that is. Hello, Raleigh.
Hey, Raleigh.
Hey, how's
Hey,
everybody? How's everybody doing?
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, except me, but I'm going to the urologist tomorrow and he's going to check it out, see what it is.
Good. I hope it's nothing.
I hope so too.
Hey, Raleigh, can you maybe close? Do you have blinds behind you?
Oh, okay. Here, give me the.
If you
Thank-
close those, we could probably see your face a little better. You're really backlit, but you're all fitted out.
He looks very heavenly.
Geez, he's closing them without
Like
even
he's
getting
got
up.
that heavenly look on him.
Yes, I have magic hands.
Much better, much better.
That's good.
Actually, maybe not. Maybe you better open them up.
I don't know why anybody would want to see my face anyway. So.
Yeah, that's what I was kidding about just then.
Oh, something just happened. It opened. There it is. Okay, there.
You're good.
All right. Okay. That's kind of bright.
Okay, I'm gonna roll.
Okay. Good.
Are you on the sound?
Yeah, everything's working. For a change. Except me.
Well, who wants to work?
Speak among yourselves.
Hello, Nancy.
Hi, sorry. I gotta get this crazy person fixed up here. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah,
He looks
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, we're good.
We're
Okay.
good.
Nancy, could you pull that shade down in front of Raleigh?
Sometimes I think she wants to.
Oh, that's me.
She wants to pull down the shade forever.
Yeah. We've all had that feeling. For all of us. all of our wives.
Yes. Yeah. Here's to the long-suffering women that have to deal with us, so.
Hey, so he hasn't checked in yet. I guess I didn't pick up on the last time that Norman was on the call. He was back at Princeton. I guess his daughter's thinking of going there.
Hmm. Really?
Yeah, because I got something later about Princeton.
It's hard to
He had
get
said he
into
was back, I believe. Is Princeton in
New
Connecticut?
Jersey.
New Jersey. Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he was somewhere back there, and no, it wasn't Princeton. I apologize. It was Yale.
Wow. Hmm.
Wow.
Where's Yale?
That's in Connecticut, I'm pretty confident.
Yeah, it's in New England.
What are we talking about today, guys?
Are we going back to the checklist?
Uh,
I saw one on there that he put on there. He mentioned the name of Rick Vila.
Yeah. What about him?
Well, has anybody ever heard from him? For whatever reason, when I was living in Michigan, he was living in Michigan also. I don't even know how I know that. He was living down around University of Michigan, and I just when I saw you, I just was looking through the list. I thought, I wonder if anybody in the group had ever kept any kind of contact with him.
What's his name again?
I talked to him. It must have been 20 years ago, I think, for some reason, because I got his email and he called me up. So we talked, and he said that they had a child late in life, which was kind of a surprise. And evidently he's a big kid who is going to play football. They called him like Baby Huey.
Huh.
And I had no idea he was in Michigan at that time. And I don't know, just, they're busy raising. I think the other children had already left the home, and this child was in junior high by now. And for some reason, he lived in Michigan. I said, wait a minute, did you say Michoacan? And he said, no, Michigan. What's a Mexican doing in Michigan, And he said, no, I don't know. He told me why. His employment was there, and they were busy raising their kid. And that must have been about 20 years ago, I think, 15 or 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, I don't remember Rick in any of the poker games, but I heard stories about him in the poker games. So
Yeah,
I think
that was your question on the questionnaire, Steve, is you wanted to know about the Rick Vila poker games, that something was, there was something.
yeah, I thought
really
Rick was
special.
there when there was some chicanery done by Rick or Gerald. Do you
Yeah,
remember the story, Harry?
yeah, we were over in Norman's house, and I think we were playing 7-card stud, and one of his down cards was a jack, and it was revealed accidentally. And somehow, whatever chicanery he did, he made it known to us that he had 3 jacks, but I think that was the only jack he had, because he turned another card over, or whatever he did. He fooled all of us, and we all folded, and he took the trick, and he had something like a pair of jacks.
Uh-huh. Thus the term Mexican bandit, right?
The Frito Bandito.
Yeah, I missed a lot of the stuff. I missed Raleigh. I missed your bachelor party. I've heard so many stories about that. In fact, I've heard so many stories about it that I tell stories to people that I meet. about that particular thing. Whenever I'm at a wedding, I say, I had this friend in high school and he had this theory about Wesson oil.
Yeah, not one of my finer moments.
Well, the part that I enjoy the most, I think, I don't know if Nancy is still there, but part of the apocryphal telling of the story is the look that Nancy gave you. I guess you had to go from that vomit session to your wedding rehearsal.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
well, that was a couple of days later. It's still, I got looks from all of the people, like Nancy and my mother. They were, like, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed.
Oh yeah, I love that. I love the "I'm disappointed" line. I used to use that all the time on my daughter. I'm not
Yeah.
mad, Mo. But I'm really disappointed.
Exactly. And no one was more disappointed in that than me, myself.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it was good because I never was in any danger of becoming an alcoholic, because every time I would think about having a drink, I go, "Ooh, oh," the automatic gag reflex. So it worked out well, in the end. So can't complain.
Well, along those lines, Gary, did you get your Rick Villa question answered, or?
Well, yeah, you got my Rick Villa answered, but Harry was mentioning the fact, what is a Mexican doing in Michigan? This is just a look, and I don't. This is a little story I had. I lived in Michigan for 7 years, and there was a new coffee chain that opened up in Michigan, and they named, Harry, don't take offense at this, but this tells you how much people know about in the Midwest about Mexicans. But the name of the coffee shop was called Beaners.
Beanos or Beaners?
Beaners Coffee Shop,
Oh,
and it was a chain out of Wisconsin.
no.
And they didn't understand the word. They didn't see anything wrong with that. But after about 2 or 3 months, somebody must have got the word to them because they changed their name.
Well, here's a story about Michigan. I was at the UCLA football game, and evidently we had played Michigan a while back ago. We weren't playing Michigan then, but I'm walking towards a food stand, and there's a couple of food stand workers there talking, Anglo guys. And one guy said to the other, "Were you there when these Michigan folks asked me what a taco was?"
A taco? Well, what is a taco?
What is a taco? I don't know. Or shouldn't I ask?
Hey, well, on Michigan connections, Don was probably there when this happened. I was tailgating at the Rose Bowl, and I was telling the story there were some women who joined us. And I think Don was there.
Was it the game or
Anyway.
was it the Rose Bowl? I mean,
Pardon
the
me?
Rose Bowl game or just a
It was
game?
it was a UCLA game at the Rose Bowl, and we were tailgating. And anyway, there were some women who we had no connection to who joined us. They were older. Here I am old. They were older. And anyway, everyone started talking about their connection to UCLA football. And I said, well, my oldest and my first memory of UCLA football was watching, I believe it was the 57 Rose Bowl. I'm going to have to think. No, it's the 56 Rose Bowl for the 55 season. And Dad was a big Bruin fan, and he loved Red Sanders. And we were watching the game. And for those of you who aren't big UCLA fans, it was during the interval that the Big Ten kicked the crap out of the Pac, the PCC every year. And Sanders had some great teams up to that point, and he was trying to turn things around, but he never won a Rose Bowl game. Anyway, it got down to the fourth quarter, and I believe the score was tied 14-14, and UCLA had the ball and was marching for what could have been the winning field goal or touchdown. But the officials called a penalty on UCLA called coaching from the sidelines. Something that is not called now. Those of you who follow football know how much coaching is done from the sidelines, a lot. But anyway, it was a seldom called penalty in those days, but they called it. And so we got penalized. It killed the drive. We gave the ball up. Michigan State came down, and there was a guy who had never kicked a field goal in his life at the college level. And he kicked a field goal, a 47-yard field goal,
Wow.
with virtually no time left in the game. And instead of getting a tie, because they played ties in those days, we lost 14-17. And my dad, who had a good vocabulary, but didn't often use it, I remember this as vividly as anything in my life. He just yelled, "God damn it!" when the field goal was kicked. And I thought that was pretty impressive. I'd never heard that from him. And I later heard from my mother that night she woke up in the middle of the night and Dad was sitting up in bed and he was still saying, "I can't believe they kicked the field goal." Anyway, I was telling this story about my first connection to UCLA football game. I watched that with Dad. It impressed me, so I knew UCLA football was important. One of these two women who was with us said, "Oh," and she gave the name of the kicker. And at that time, I knew what the name of the kicker was. I said, "How in the world did you know that?" She was in a sorority at UCLA. And after the game, her sorority hooked up the sorority members with the visiting team. And she
Whoa.
dated that son of a bitch who kicked the field goal. I couldn't believe it. Talk about a small world. Anyway, there's my football story for the day.
That sounds a little bit like procurement to me.
Well, you know, when Sanders ran his program, it was a very different era. Every year, the UCLA team would pick an all opponents team. You know, guys that we played against that they thought were really top-notch players and good sportsmen. They would invite those kids down and they would throw a dance in the honor of those kids every year. Truly a bygone era.
It makes that field goal kick even better. The guy who kicked it most likely didn't have pre-soccer experience.
Oh yeah, this was way pre-soccer.
Right.
Way.
Oh, yeah.
So he really was a neophyte.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, I'm gonna look at my list here and see if there's a topic that.
Well,
Sorry.
I have a UCLA story,
Please tell it.
which hope I didn't tell you guys this before, so please let me know. It has to do when UCLA played Tennessee in the Coliseum ages ago. And UCLA had Gary Beeman, and Gary Beeman, with about a minute and a half to go, did a sweep around the end and scored a touchdown. And we were ahead by, I don't know, maybe 3 points or so. Tennessee got the ball, and they started moving down the field. Well, there was a play there where the Tennessee quarterback went back to throw, and the UCLA defender and the Tennessee receiver got tangled up going for the ball, and they called a penalty of pass interference on UCLA. And if you were there, everyone on the UCLA side started booing and said, that was an unfair call. They were both going for the ball. We didn't see this. You know, are you trying to give Tennessee the game? Well, Tennessee got the ball around their 40. And a couple of plays later, time ran out and UCLA won. Okay, that's how I viewed this. Many, many years later, I was working at the Metro office probation, and we had a new probation officer. His name was Vic Lepisto. Now, Vic Lepisto was a linebacker for UCLA. And I talked to him about the game because he was in the game. And I said, you know, that seems so unfair. And he said, no, I was the guy they called a penalty on. And that guy put a move on me that left me frozen, and he would have been gone for a touchdown. So I grabbed his jersey and threw him to the ground. So here I was for so many years thinking that we were almost cheated out of the game. And the truth was the refs had it right.
There you go.
Defender had it right too.
Yeah.
Sometimes today, make that penalty to ward off a certain touchdown.
Yeah, in college, I think they coached them to do that
Yeah.
because it's a different penalty. In college, it's just 15 yards. In the pros, they do that, and it's, you know, you go to the point of the foul.
Well, Mora used to teach him that because it seemed every time, you know, there was going to be a completed pass by the other team, we'd get a penalty. So that under Mora, hey, that
Yeah,
was
it seemed like that was our only defensive tactic.
right.
Hey, Steve or Harry or anybody, how long is this communication, direct communication to the generally on offense, the quarterback? How long has that been around?
Well, in terms of coaching from the sidelines,
No,
As
I'm
people-
referring to now they have a microphone, and the player on offense and defense has a green dot.
Yeah,
And
this is
goes
the
off
first
15
year. This
seconds.
is the first year for
Oh,
that.
is it? Oh, okay.
Yes.
Ah. So if you see a guy with a green dot, he's talking to somebody.
I got a question for the group.
Yeah.
I don't, how many of us had parents that moved to California from someplace else
After they were married or
after they were married? Or, I mean, because like my parents moved to California. Actually, they moved to California twice. They moved once, moved back to Illinois, and moved back to California. So my parents came from California. I was born in Illinois, but only lived there for like 3 minutes. But so did the rest of you after World War II, did your parents like migrate to California, or did they always live in California?
No, my parents came from, they were born in Puerto Rico, but they
Right.
met in New York. And I was born in New York. And when I was around, I guess around 11, 12 maybe, they moved to California.
Yeah,
my parents were always in California.
always. What-
Well, after they were married. Yes.
Yeah. So Don, you said something about your father. Was he in the military for quite a period of time, or?
My dad, yeah, during
Yeah.
World War II, he was too old for World War II. He was a pilot, so he was a civilian with Cal Aero, teaching Air Corps airmen to fly.
Yeah.
Then after the war, when the Air Corps was converted to the Air Force, he joined the Air Force as a reservist then, and then was with them for 20 years.
Wow. Yeah. I was just curious because, like I say, it seemed like a lot of couples and families after World War II, they migrated to California from someplace else. How about you, Steve? How about your parents?
Yeah, both of my they were married in California. Each of them were born in a different state than California. My
Yeah.
dad was born in Iowa, just south of the Minnesota border, and he lived most of his developmental years in Minnesota. And my mom was born in Pekin, Illinois. And shortly thereafter, her family moved her to Texas, and she lived in Plainview, Texas.
Hmm.
Dad came out to California in the very early 30s. He drove out. He drove across those sand dunes out by Yuma on the
Yeah.
old board highway. He had pictures of that. Mom, during the Depression, her family ran a creamery in Plainview, Texas, a dairy.
Yeah.
And during the Depression, no one could pay their bills to the creamery, so they came out to California, gave up the
Yeah.
creamery. My in-laws, I don't know about my mother-in-law, but my father-in-law is kind of an interesting migration. He came out to California by riding the rails on the train, which is to say, you know how hobos did it? They'd get underneath there by the wheels.
Yeah, they
That's how
used to
he
call
got
them
to
hobos
California.
during the Depression,
Yeah, that's how he did it.
because my father used to tell me about the hobo camp that was very close to his house by the railroad tracks.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't call them bums or whatever they call them. They were just hobos.
Well, yeah, in those days, probably everyone was bummed.
And as a kid, he actually even hung out with them. He'd go down to the hobo camp and hang out with them. It was, they were, you know, they weren't
They were
considered.
probably interesting people.
Yeah.
What about you, Raleigh?
Well, I was born in Alabama, where my mom and dad went. He's from Monrovia. But then World War II intervened and stuff like that. And she was a nurse in Alabama, and he went to Okinawa at World War II, and then they met back up when he demobilized, you know, in California. So, you know, that
Was he
was,
Marine?
no, he was Army.
Army.
Yeah. In fact, it was interesting. That's the only place he had ever been, you know, was stayed in Washington and California, and then got drafted, went to Alabama to Fort Rucker, I think, or something. I can't remember, but then went on a troop ship to Okinawa, you know, and came back. So, you know, and he used to tell me stories about Okinawa, but he never saw combat. But he repaired refrigerators and telephones and stuff like that, you know. So, you know, he avoided combat, which is probably the smart. Otherwise, he might not have been there. So that wasn't a good place to be.
How many of you have regretted that you didn't pick your parents and grandparents' brains more when they were around?
Oh, I'm there.
I asked the question.
Yeah, my mother, just to tell you, my family history is somewhat similar to Steve's in the fact that my father was born in Canton, Illinois, which is pretty close to Pekin. In fact, I've been to Pekin and I've been to Peoria, Illinois, and Canton. They're all up in that kind of northwest corner of Illinois. My mother was born in Bloomington, Illinois.
Okay.
But her father, my grandfather, was born in Eagle Grove, Iowa, which is up almost to the border of Minnesota. In fact, my grandfather met my grandmother actually in Minnesota. He was a cook in her restaurant, and it was in what's the place that the vice president candidate, where's he from in Minnesota? Because my grandmother and that's where they met. I forget what that town is. I actually been there. So, you know, kind of similar kind of history there. And kind of similar history to Raleigh's dad is my dad he was in the Navy. And I guess him and his buddy, they were very ingenious because when he was in when he was in boot camp, or whatever they call it in the Navy. It was up in the, it was up on the Great Lakes or whatever. And they actually made a deal with the local milkman, and they would buy milk and smuggle it into the base, because I guess they didn't give him milk. And he would sell that milk and make extra money. And he was a machinist mate in the New Hebrides Islands, which is in the South Pacific. And when he was there, he had the only hair clippers and whatever, so he was the barber. And for whatever their little group was, so he made extra money cutting hair. And he was never a gambler, so when he got paid, he didn't go and gamble it all away. In fact, when he got out, I think he said they had enough money. It's amazing. He moved back to Bloomington, Illinois. I had just been born, and I've got this picture of him. He actually built his first house in Bloomington. It's a little tiny place, but they bought a lot and he built the house. I don't know, somebody helped him or whatever, but he built the house, and then they got the itch because his best friend lived in California, so they picked up and moved to California. So, but so I have a lot of similarities between Steve and Raleigh as far as my parents.
So Don, in asking the question, are there some mysteries with your parents that you wish you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can't think of any now, but there's things that just come up from time to time. Oh, I should know that.
Well, I think it's interesting you asked the question. I have a lingering mystery. Late in life, my dad was really vital. He'd go out. He was always in great physical condition. When he was about 85, he got hit by a car when he was out taking one of his daily strolls.
Gee.
And that kind of triggered his decline. He ended up dying just a few months short of 89. But he had dementia the last couple of years and was kind of in convalescent homes and hospitals. Oh, by the way, you can see that I'm a cat person there.
Oh,
I was just walking on my pool table.
See that?
Anyway, my dad was always a very straight-laced guy. I never saw him take a drink. I remember going on vacation with my parents, and we went up through the California wine country. And in those days, wineries offered free wine if you just take a tour through their facilities.
not anymore.
Yeah, I know. So anyway, we actually went up to one of the wineries, and my mom and dad hemmed and hawed. Mom really kind of wanted to see what the operation looked like, but they didn't feel that they could go inside a winery. That was kind of an immoral thing, so they didn't. Now this is all backstory. So late in life, my dad was declining mentally, and my sister was there with him one day, and it was kind of warm in the hospital, and she was talking, and he was kind of his head was moving around, but he was having kind of a lucid day that day, and so he reacted to the heat, and he said, "Jesus, it's hot in here. I could sure use a beer." And he never touched a drink in my lifetime. But looking back at the pictures of him when he was a kid back in Minnesota, he looked like he ran with a pretty fast crowd. And so I have this feeling that my dad had a backstory which was a little on the wild side, but my mom kind of straightened him out, ruined him. And I'd love to know that backstory, but the problem is, by the time this happened, Dad was old, all my aunts and uncles were old, they were all dying off, and I was always kind of estranged from most of my aunts and uncles anyway. So I don't have anybody that I could ask about that. I've asked some of my cousins who were older than I, and asked if they'd ever heard any stories from their parents about him, but I couldn't get that answer. So in answer to your question, Don, there is more I'd like to know, and I wish I'd had some time and asked some harder questions back when they were capable of answering them.
Yeah, questions come up in my mind all the time, but don't have such a big mystery like that one that just burns me. Speaking of Minnesota, I'm going to take a road trip back to Minnesota next May, Peggy's grandson graduates from high school. And I probably told you before, she's from a little town called Cloquet. And she's one of 13 children by single mom and dad. She's the oldest, so we're gonna drive back and probably, I want more for 2 weeks, she wants 3. And we'll hit, yeah, I've never been to Yellowstone, so on the way back, we'll go through
Sure.
Yellowstone. So that's
Yeah.
gonna be a big trip.
Since Gary lived in Michigan, he probably talked to this more authoritatively than I, but we chose to take a trip back there. Yeah, we're great on checking boxes. We've been to all 50 states. We've been to all the
Right.
territories in Canada. So we hadn't seen all the Great Lakes. So we planned a trip around the Great Lakes. If you're going to make the big trip to go back there, you could spend your time a lot worse than going to see all the Great Lakes. It's really a fun thing to do. Lots of good cities along the way, interesting people. You learn about different cultures. Michigan, as Gary knows, Michigan has a special breed of people called the Yoopers. For
The
people
who?
who live on the Upper Peninsula, UP.
Oh, yeah. That's the Upper Peninsula thing is, actually, it's still a mystery to me. We drove up there once and we drove for like an hour and we didn't see anything but trees. And we decided, actually we ended up going to Sault Ste. Marie in Canada. It was one of our first trips to Canada, because they've got that, I can't remember, the Mackinac Bridge you go over, which is like a big high bridge. In fact, it's so high that some people are afraid to actually drive across the Mackinac Bridge. And they actually have drivers at each end of the bridge that will drive people across the bridge because they're afraid. And I don't know what other than the fact it's like climbing a big hill. But anyway, yeah. I mean, Michigan. I mean, to be honest with you, I would probably be talking to you from Michigan if it wasn't for the fact that all the family lived out west. So for Linda and I, it's like, hey, we've been sitting in Michigan all by ourselves. So we decided to move west again. And at that point in time, we couldn't afford the housing prices in California. So this is as far west as we could get. Now, the irony of that whole thing is we have a granddaughter that moved up here about 7 years ago, her and husband, and they had their 2 kids here. They lived here for 7 years. And my granddaughter was a school teacher. Now she's in administration in schools, but she worked at a charter school, and for whatever reason, they recruited all their teachers from Michigan. And so she met all these people from Michigan, ladies and gals and guys that she worked with. So in February, my granddaughter, husband, and my 2 great grandkids moved back to Michigan. So now they live in Michigan, and they live up and around Traverse City, where if you look at Michigan, it's like a hand, and they're up here in the top. And in fact, I'll put in a plug right now and write this down. North 40 Acres.
Oh, you said that before. Their website?
Did I? Am I advertising again?
I think you are. I remember that. I can't remember if I went there or not, though. North
40 Acres. It's on YouTube. And every Friday, my granddaughter and the great grandkids do about it's never been longer than 10-minute little YouTube thing. They call it she calls it their homesteading, because they move from Utah to this upper Michigan place. And like I say, it's interesting because she still works for the charter school here in Ogden, Utah, like 3 days a week online, because she's now head of their curriculum. I don't know what that all means, but she puts together their curriculum, and they're like kindergarten through high school. So she does that 3 days a week. And then my grandson-in-law, he was selling software online. He just dropped that. Now works for a home remodeling company. He manages all the crews or whatever they do up in Michigan. But it's kind of interesting. The one they bought 50 chickens and butchered them about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So they go through the whole process. And the other interesting thing about the great grandkids, Josh is 7 and Claire is 5. She just turned 5 today. Today's her birthday. They didn't seem to have any problem helping mom and dad out in butchering and cutting up and getting it all chickens all ready to freeze. They were helping out, washing off tables. So I was talking to somebody about that. I said, if mom and dad don't get upset about anything, if the little kids watch them do it, they don't get upset too. And it's true. They just, okay, this is what we're going to do. So I was amazed. That was probably, and the other, unfortunately, the one that they got the most hits on is when they bought a tractor. So my grandson-in-law was out demonstrating the tractor, and they've got 2,000 hits on that particular little segment. So anyway,
How big is their following?
that's my commercial for my granddaughter. North 40 acres.
How many in their following or whatever how many subscribers? Do you know?
Oh, there's not, I mean, subscribers, I don't know. It's probably in the 40 to 50 people range. They've been doing it. She's been doing it since March. And, like I say, for some reason, they got 2,000 hits on the trailer thing, on the tractor thing. And then the next biggest one hit was on butchering the chickens. I think they got 200, 250.
So what was their preferred killing mechanism? Wringing the neck or?
No, they had a whole process. I mean, they even had they bought it's like a tub that spins. And after you kill the chicken, and they have it's like a funnel with a big opening at the bottom. You stick the chicken in there, head down, and then you slice the chicken, and then you go throw it in this defeather thing, and it spins around with water, and it defeathers the whole chicken. They got the whole thing down. They did 20, and they bought all the chicks. They bought all the chickens, and they ship them through the mail. Did you know that you can ship chicks through the mail? Because they got 50 of them in February. 25 of them are whole chickens, and 25 of them they cut up into thighs and breast, chicken breast and legs and all that other stuff. So anyway.
You mean UPS doesn't stand for United Poultry Service?
I guess. But anyway, it's and most of the other ones is just my granddaughter making. She made like tomato sauce, and she made this last week. She did fermented garlic honey. Never heard of it before, but she says it's great. It's great for the immune system and all this other stuff. Anyway, she's into all that. She's into all that stuff too, because she's had migraine headaches for years, and she's always tried to solve that problem holistically. She doesn't want to be taking a bunch of medicine and stuff. So she's into all that kind of stuff. So anyway, enough of my conversation. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
It's just an example of how rich in content YouTube is.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Oh yeah.
See out there. A lot of it's questionable, maybe in terms of subject or whatever. But anything you want. When I want to do something, I don't Google it. I'll go on YouTube first. Of course, I could probably Google it because the same company would probably tell me the right YouTube video to watch. But I just tend to do that. Plus, I can spend hours. 2 and 3 hours just, what's the term? Where you watch something over or a series and you won't get out of it. You just go what I'll just do that. I'll start with a subject on YouTube and just keep letting it go, decide the next one, which is related. I'll be sitting there for 2 or 3 hours late at night watching, I don't know, whether it's a music documentary, whether it's some other kind of documentary or biography or something like that. It's just a great way to kill time. Fortunately, unless I'm doing something serious, I wait and do that kind of TV watching late at night. puts me to sleep. So I don't know if that says it's good or bad.
So I
Yeah,
found a
I-
topic, I found a topic I'd like to drill down in. But before I do, can I ask, how many of you guys are doing stuff like TikTok, Instagram?
No.
I follow my granddaughter on Instagram and I do Facebook.
Uh-huh.
We started out years ago doing Facebook. And we got, what do you want to, we got, scammed or whatever. Anyway, somebody was putting stuff out there on Facebook, which was really filthy. And family was calling us up and saying, how come you're posting this stuff? And we were never posting it. So Linda and I decided, forget it. We're just getting off all social media. So I don't even deal with social media. Now, Linda, she just got back on X, but she's never done TikTok or, I mean, my daughter, she still does Facebook, and she does X and Facebook, but we don't do it anymore.
Yeah, I think I mentioned to Don last time that I'm on Facebook and I had made a comment. Oh, Marvin Parrish had made a comment on Don's Facebook about veterans. And then I made a comment, and then I decided to click onto Marvin Parrish's Facebook, and it's been taken over by some Filipino woman.
Right.
So all her issues are whatever, her ex-boyfriend and this and that, and nothing to do with Marvin. So I think she may have been, I don't know, Don can correct me, she may have been a girlfriend of Marvin. I'm not sure, but like you're saying, she took over Marvin's Facebook. So yeah, I
He may
understand
have
what
gotten that.
happened.
He may have gotten that repaired. I've noticed recently. I used to get messages. That's a sub program of Facebook, private messages you can do, or you can share whatever you want. That's used to be how I communicated with him via Facebook. More recently, he, like me and most people on Facebook, he communicates through the main thing. So maybe he got the issue you're talking about, Harry, fixed. You might want to try him again.
Okay.
Okay, now I want to go back to my topic. One of the topics we had on our lists was the funniest thing I ever heard, saw, or did.
Oof, I never did anything funny.
While you're thinking about that, I'll tell you mine. And I have two favorites that both used to make Barbara Miwa pee her pants. Okay. But this was my favorite of the two. Okay. When I was in fourth grade, I had my best friend. I was still living in El Monte, California.
Oh.
And my best friend was a guy named Dennis Anderson. And he was up in front and he was having to do something, had to make a presentation. And that particular day, Dennis had a bad cold, a really bad head cold. He was really congested. Anyway, as he was talking, he had to sneeze, but he didn't want to sneeze. And so he tried to bottle the whole thing up. But in bottling it up, all that pressure went somewhere. So what happened was he did sneeze, and what came out of his mouth were 2 6-inch strands of snot just dangling, going like this. And so the entire class went absolutely apeshit. You know, just try to picture what it looks like. 2 strands of snot. Okay. But
Oh, thank you.
Dennis, horrified by the class's reaction, had to rectify the situation somehow. Any ideas? He went and brought both of them back up into his nose. And the class went crazy.
Jeez.
Okay, that's the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Well, I have
Can you
something
top that?
similar situation, not with the same ingredient though. In high school, the Squires was a service club for freshmen and sophomore. And so we went to Disneyland as a field trip. It was through the club, but you got there, I guess, independent. I can't remember that. Anyway, it was a date, one in, dating affair. And David Akins was with Judy Best. I'm telling you this because you'll probably never see David or never see Judy because you don't come to reunions. But at any rate, we were in, what was it? The Carnation restaurant where they had ice cream and everything on Main Street.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
We were there, just normal. And somebody said something funny right when David was taking a drink. I'll say it was water. It could have been anything, but I'll say it was water. And he burst out laughing in the middle of his trying to drink his water, and he spit it all over Judy's face and upper chest. And that was pretty funny. I mean, for me, it's funny. For
Not so much for Dave.
not so much for Dave or Judy. So that was one of the funny.
Is that why she married Tom?
Probably. I don't recall Dave and Judy doing much dating after that. Of course, I took Sharon Barnes and I never dated her again, or never had another date with her again. But I did spit on her at least. So that was. I always like these kind of jokes that are just really pathetic, and I think that's why I thought it was very funny. I'm not even sure the reaction. I'm sure everybody that even wasn't. There was like 3 or 4, whether it's for at least one more couple, maybe 2.
So did you see it?
Oh, I saw it.
You saw it.
I was there. Yeah, at the table.
What was Judy's reaction? She didn't like it much, but what was her reaction?
Excuse me. I can't remember it. I don't think anybody laughed. I think we were all mortified, both for Judy as well as Dave. It was almost as bad as that. Well, probably worse. One of our reunions, I guess our 10th. Dave, when he was a junior, and he was a member of the Key Club, they were on the campus once doing service, because they were a service club, a real service club.
Oh, I know where this is going.
I know where it's going because I'm part of it.
Oh, well, no, maybe you. I'll just say the first part. Were you there when he backed into the railing of the cafeteria?
Yeah, he did it with my dad's car.
Okay, then I won't go any further. My story was, everybody remembered that it was a much bigger deal than I thought, because I only heard it secondhand. But I guess at the 10th reunion,
Yeah.
someone presented him a Fender.
Yeah, I was there for the presentation also. That was you're talking about the funniest time, Mike. That was the worst time in my life. Is because it was my dad's, it was what was it? A Ford Falcon. It was a Ford Falcon, and my dad let me drive that. It was a stick shift. And so we were painting Senior Square. Were you there, Steve? Yeah, I think
I was.
So you know the whole thing too. So we're out. So David said he had his learner's permit and he wanted to know if he could just practice. And my father let me know about this. You never give the keys of your car to anybody. But I say, no, sure, Dave, you can practice on my car. And I'm sitting down there painting, and all of a sudden, ram, crash. He had driven the front part of it, smashed in the whole front end, right into the pillar coming down on that awning that went over the cafeteria. And David split his lip, I think.
Oh, wow.
His father actually was working in the print shop that Saturday, because we went and got his father and whatever. And actually, my father and David Aiken's father didn't end up being friends after that whole thing.
Yeah, didn't Dave's dad refuse to pay or something?
Yeah, my dad had insurance, but there was a $50 deductible. So my dad asked David's father to pay the $50 deductible when he refused to do it. And my dad just was, but that was really one of my father's finer moments, because of course, I went down, I think it was a payphone on campus, and I called my dad and I was crying and everything else. And I told my dad what happened. And he didn't, it wasn't like, you know, you stupid, whatever. He basically said, well, I think he said, okay, are you all right? I said, yeah, I'm fine. He came down or whatever. And then later on, he said, you know, Gary, he says, this is a learning experience. He says, I'm not going to get real upset. You've learned something from this. And to be honest with you, I had an accident with my dad's car when I was a kid. And I can't totally, you know, get all ticked off or whatever. He says, you've learned something here. Don't go giving the keys to somebody else. And so he was very, very understanding of the whole situation. So I appreciated his response to it. But yeah, that was, you know, that wasn't my funniest experience. That was my worst.
No, that was one of your more painful ones.
That was a painful experience for me. But yeah, in fact, I was trying to sit here and think of a funny thing, and I can't remember my funniest experience. I'll tell you my stupidest thing I ever did. Okay, because I know I'm a funny one. I was working at the Broadway when I worked at the Broadway all through college. I worked part-time, and I used to work nights. In fact, I worked 5 nights a week, and then I worked all day Saturday and Sunday. I was working 35 hours a week. And anyway, so one of the guys, he was getting married, and so we decided to go out after work on a Friday night, and we were going to, you know, celebrate with him. So we went to a strip bar first, had beers. I was over 21. Then we went to anyway, we ended up pretty well drunk. So me and 2 other guys, we're driving our way home. We see this drive-in theater, and we said, well, let's go to the drive-in theater. So we drive into the front of the drive-in theater. We don't go in. We get out of the cars. We walk into the theater, and you know they got the little microphones and whatever sitting on a post. So the 3 of us, being stupid, drunk guys, go up and we turn on the microphone, and we're sitting there watching the movie, listening to the stupid movie with no cars parked outside. So obviously one of the attendants came over and said, what are you guys doing? Well, we're watching the movie, blah, blah, blah. Not knowing. He says, well, get the you know what out of here. So we left, and that was like the stupidest thing I ever did. I mean, I was like, you know, but I was drunk, so that's my excuse. And we did make it home safely, everything. But I was thinking about what Raleigh was saying about getting drunk at his bachelor party. I only got really drunk once that I got sick. And after that, number one, I did it on a Friday night. I had to be at work the next morning at 9 a.m. And I drove that was the worst work day of my life. And I said to myself all day, I am never doing that again, ever. And I haven't. I never did it again.
Harry, how about you? Funniest thing?
Well, I recall I was in a junior college, and I sat in the back row by the wall with some guy that was from, I think, Denmark, another guy that was French Canadian, and another guy who I spoke Spanish to. And we had a teacher who just about read his notes. And he was talking about, this was American history, 1850s, I guess. And he said, the instructor said that one of the most important inventions in the West was the invention of barbed wire. Okay, so I was taking notes, and these 3 guys next to me, you know, we would always chit chat. And I just said, who did he say invented barbed wire? And we looked at each other, and this guy said, Mr. Barbed Wire. And we're just kind of stunned. And then you ever have this contagious laughter where you can't control it? all four of us just started laughing and choking. And I just covered my face. The guy to my left just left the room because he was hysterically laughing. He couldn't stop laughing. And it just went on and on until
Yeah,
the
When you
moment
get
was
the
over.
when you get the giggles, it's almost impossible to stop.
It was unbelievable. And especially since the teacher was so boring that pretty soon the teacher started looking at us and everyone in class started looking at us. And I just covered my face with the book and it looked like I was taking notes. And like I said, the other guy walked out of the classroom. So we just were out of control. We couldn't stop laughing.
Raleigh, got one?
Yeah, actually, it was about you, Steve.
Okay.
And it was a near-death experience for both of us, including Shigeru and Gerald. We were skin diving at Lunados Bay in Palos Verdes.
Yes, you son of a bitch.
And that was probably one of the stupidest things we've ever done.
It was,
You
and
know.
Alan was there. Alan and I were the main guys pleading with you.
Yep. And
Oh, you rat! You rat fart!
and we were out there and the tide was going out, and then it changed when we were out there, and all of a sudden the waves got bigger and bigger and bigger. And maybe it's only in my imagination, but they seemed like they were 20 feet high, you know. And so we all hauled ass the opposite direction. We were wearing, you know, scuba gear, like, you know, just masks and snorkels and flippers and stuff. And where Steve and I came ashore was peppered with sea urchins on the floor.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
And every time we took a step, we stepped on more frickin' sea urchins, you know. And Steve was cursing and going, you know, it just going bananas over there. Every time he'd step on another one. I was sitting there and I'd gotten a few, but
you had
I
gotten to
was laughing
safety and I
so
was still
hard
at
at him,
risk.
you know, because he was just like, you know, and it was so funny. I still kind of remember that, you know. It's like, wow.
Okay, well, let me fill in a couple of details here.
Yeah.
It wasn't a tide issue. We had made this arrangement with Shig and Alan and you and me. Was there anybody else besides the four of us? You think
remember.
Shig was there too?
I think so.
Okay, Gerald had loaned me flippers and a mask. But what had happened was we made this thing, we're going to do it on Saturday. And that Saturday weekend, there was a huge storm up north. So we had really high surf, really bad conditions. I had a surf mat that I had tied a weight to with a rope to drop down so I would have a place to go back to, because I was a crappy swimmer. And we got out there, and as soon as I dropped the anchor, I went down underwater, and you couldn't see anything because the high surf had churned everything up. So we were just completely blind in the water. So we decided to give up quickly. But the sea was so bad that the only way we could get back was kind of have the surf toss us up on the rocks. And that's when we discovered rocks are hard and rocks have sea urchins. And Raleigh was better than me. He got out first. So he was in a safe position. And the reason I was swearing at him was the stupid son of a bitch wouldn't help me up off the rocks. And I kept floundering. Every time I would fall, more urchins. I had urchins in my hands, all over my arms. It took weeks to get all that crap out.
Yeah.
But I hated that. I hated you, Raleigh. You prick.
I would have helped, but I was laughing so hard every time he tried to get up and fall back in. And I still remember that. And I was literally helpless. I was laughing too hard to help.
I don't hear an apology anywhere.
Nor will you. Not for
Probably
me. Now, he
not.
owes me one, I think.
That's what I mean.
I'm surprised we were still friends after that because I mean, it was kind of cruel, but I couldn't help it. You know,
Dick.
it was just so funny.
It was and I lost, by the way, I lost Gerald's mask. So
I
I had to go back to him and say, you know, it's going to take me a while to pay you the $25 that I owe you for that mask.
Yeah. Yeah, that was
That was a good
amazing.
memory, Rolly.
Yeah, that was amazing. You know, well, I don't have all that many funny stories, you know, other than myself, you know.
I'm trying to look at the item here. It was the funniest thing. You certainly picked one of my stupidest.
Well, it wasn't that you were stupid. It was just funny because you kept cursing and falling back in and trying to get out and then falling back in and cursing, you know, and I was sitting there like going, you know, I still think about that every now and then, you know.
Well, I'm glad I've brought a little joy to your life.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, yes, it was a moment, you know. I had a moment there. I'm sure that I gave everybody else a little joy when they found out how sick I got before my wedding too. So, you know, it's kind of evened out.
It's a karma thing.
Yeah,
Hey,
exactly.
Harry, with the giggles thing, you reminded me, there's some linkage here. I
Yeah,
told this story to one of my Air Force customers one time when we were in a big meeting and we both started laughing. We got the giggles like Harry was describing, and we couldn't
Yeah.
stop. And so in this really important meeting with a lot of big military bigwigs and a lot of highly paid contractors, all attention suddenly turned to the two idiots in the back who were laughing because I'd made him laugh about the dangling snot. He called that a double strander story. But there was another giggle story that I thought of when you were talking, Harry, and that was even when I was at Los Alamos, its name kind of meant something. There was some gravitas. You could say, I'm from Los Alamos. And you could go to a meeting. They were always asking people from Los Alamos to come and review other programs inside DOD. And so one time a guy named Don Hines and I were selected to go up to Colorado Springs and review a bunch of directed energy programs that were being pitched to SDI. So we were up there as invited technical experts in the field of directed energy. Well, Don knew nothing about directed energy, and I knew next to nothing about directed energy. But I had worked on a directed energy program, so I kind of knew the lingo. Anyway, we went up there, and the night before the meeting, where he and I were the what would you call the august reviewers of the projects, there was a movie running called LA Confidential. I don't know if any of you have ever seen it.
I've seen it, but I forgot all about it.
It was a really good movie. It's somewhere close to Chinatown in terms of a great story about Los Angeles. Anyway, in it, there's a scene where this police guy, a really hard-ass guy played by Russell Crowe, and he's playing a character named Bud White. He's going to interrogate a LA hood, a real guy named Johnny Stompanato, who was the muscle man for Mickey Cohen in LA, if you remember those names. Anyway, in the scene, in the movie, Bud White is not getting what he wants in terms of answers from Johnny Stompanato. So you don't see it, but it's very clear what happens. From the motion of Bud White and the facial reaction on Johnny Stompanato's face, Bud White has grabbed his nuts and he is twisting. And so Johnny Stompanato starts going, and then he starts telling his story. And every time he doesn't say exactly what Bud White wants, you get another one of these things. So that's the background. Okay, forward to the next day. and the two technical experts from the highly respected National Laboratory are reviewing these concepts. And some guy, I don't know where from, was directing, I believe it wasn't an X-ray laser. It was it was essentially a big electric fly zapper. It was an electrostatic defense that was going to throw a giant lightning bolt to attack incoming RVs and vaporize them. And anyway, he was the dullest presenter, but certainly one of the dullest I ever listened to. And as he was making this presentation, I was kind of looking around the room, and people were falling and sleeping. And Don and I were sitting next to each other. And I said, you know what this guy needs? He needs Bud White to help him give this presentation. And it hit Don Hines just right, and he got the giggles. And when he got the giggles, I got the giggles. So now here are these two experts who have been requested to come here and do this high-level review, and there are a couple of idiots sitting there laughing in the room. And we couldn't stop. And finally, Don had to get up and leave, and I was left there to try to compose myself, and it took a long time. Pretty embarrassing stuff.
So much for Los Alamos' reputation.
Well, you knew it was in the crapper when I went there.
Well, I got a story, and it's an interesting story. I don't know if it fits the topic, but I think the category would be, don't go out with a cousin you don't know well, okay? I happen to...
I already like it.
I mean, you think about, you run into cousins that you don't know very well, right? Or you've heard about. So I was visiting, it's before I got married, I was visiting my parents who had moved to Puerto Rico. My parents kept moving. So my dad says, hey, your cousin Fito knows that you're here and he wants to take you out for a drink. I said, fine. So cousin Fito shows up, and cousin Fito is maybe about 5'5", 160-pound stocky little guy. And he shows up with a guy, another Puerto Rican guy who's about 6'5" and about, 160, 180 basketball player type. I mean, here you have freaking frat, right? So we go out to this bar that's way in, looks like the jungle. And we stop. And my cousin gets out, and all three of us are walking into the bar. The tall guy goes and recognizes some people that are seated, and he goes to talk to them. My cousin takes out from his pocket a beret, and he puts it, and he winks at me, and he puts it on his head. We go up to the bar, and the bartender is this stocky woman with a tattoo on her arm. And she says to my cousin Fito, give me my hat. And he says, oh, yeah, I'll give it to you in a few minutes or whatever. And she said, I want my hat back, because evidently she had loaned him that beret. So we order some drinks. He gives her a 20. And she says, I'm not going to give you the change back until you give me my hat. And he said, what a cheapskate bitch you are, So she takes the change, throws it in front of us, grab the change, and then she slaps him, okay? So he dives across the bar, just flailing. I grab him by the back of his pants where his belt is, and he's flailing on the bar, trying to strangle this woman. I pull him back, I grab him around the waist, and I drag him out of the bar to the patio area. Okay, the owner of the bar, who's a friend of Fito, comes over, and we try to calm Fito down. And the guy says, the owner of the bar says, I'm sorry, I'm going to fire her. That's no way to treat somebody. Okay, the tall guy who had been sitting talking to the other people comes over. And I'm thinking he's going to help calm Fito down, like the rest of us, right? Fito explains what happened. And the guy says, "You let that bitch do that to you? I wouldn't take shit like that." And he pulls out a gun. And the gun is a Derringer. And he hands it to Fito. And me and the owner, our jaws drop. And we say, "Fito, don't grab the gun. Fito, don't grab that." So Fito did not grab the gun, luckily, and the guy puts it away. We calm Fito down. We go back into the bar. We finish our drinks, and we got the hell out of there. And what I did was, I took the beret. The beret was never to be seen again because I'm thinking, I don't want to get shot over a dumb hat. The hell with my cousin, let him get shot, but I don't want anything to do with this. And then my cousin said, this is how he was thinking, he says, "I don't think that gun worked. It probably would have blown up in my hand. So that's why I didn't grab it." So went back to my parents' house. I said goodbye, Fito. I had a great memory of Puerto Rico. And I said, "I'm never going to go out with this fool bar again." And I had the beret for about 10 years, and I don't know what happened to it.
Oh, what a shame to have lost such a great relic.
Well, there is one question in there, Steve, you had on there. Did they do some kind of a celebration or on your retirement?
When you retired.
So did any of you get some kind of a party or celebration or
Yeah.
whatever when you retired from work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so was there
I
anything
guess they weren't
notable?
memorable, huh?
Mine
Some
certainly
great stories
wasn't.
to come out of it.
No, mine was memorable. Remember the restaurant we got together at for the poker reunion
Right.
at my house?
The first time?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a Mexican restaurant, was it
Right.
not?
Right. Yeah, I forgot the name of it, but that's where they held my retirement dinner, lunch. So the only thing interesting about it was that because I had worked in a lot of black areas and was exposed to a lot of black crime, I was always telling my wife, how blacks have a higher rate of violent criminality. And, she was saying, "God, you sound like a racist, the way you're going on about these." I said, "Well, it is what it is." So when she came to the retirement dinner, and probably about 50 people from my office were there, all but one of the blacks were all there. And my wife couldn't figure this out. "These people like you?" I said, "Yeah, they're all my friends, They're all my friends. And we all talk the same shit, about crime. It's not racial, So they gave me a Tony Bahama. Is that the name?
Tommy Bahama.
Tommy Bahama shirt. That was my present. It was like $100 shirt, I said, "Wow, that's nice." And all these people, they got up and gave statements, it was very touching because they were all said all these nice things about me. And wow, I must have done something right.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine was pretty boring. The only thing that kind of stands out about it really happened afterwards. They had it, and it was an out-of-town restaurant in Los Alamos, or just outside of Los Alamos, at a restaurant that doesn't exist anymore, called Filomena's. And it used to be famous because being close to Los Alamos, the chili was so hot, people would say it was atomic. That was a big joke. Ha ha. Anyway, we were at Filomena's and everyone's knocking back margaritas and having a good time. And, people stood up and said nice things. And I was grateful. But afterwards, and they hand you a card, and in the card, there was, in my case, I got a gift certificate for stay up here in Oregon at a really cool bed and breakfast. So yeah, that was what I got for my going away present. It was probably worth a couple $100. You know, comparable to the Tommy Bahama thing. But the thing that stood out for me was afterwards, maybe 10 years later, one day when we were in one of our house cleaning sessions, and you know, get rid of stuff before we die so that the kids don't have to figure out what all this is. We were looking at the card from my going away luncheon, and there were 4 people on the card who I have never met in my lifetime. And it just goes to show that if you have a luncheon somewhere where drinks and food are involved, people will show up, whether they know you or not.
I actually had 2 retirement parties. One at work, the normal work thing. I think it was at a pizza parlor or something. But the other one was friends. Back when I retired, there was a, I don't know if you call them, a dance club bar called The Hop. And there was one in Lakewood, and it was owned by one of the Righteous Brothers. So remember, it was Tom and Judy, Ben Warner, Margaret Emig, a couple other people from high school, but just high school friends, because even though that long, they were still my friends. And we had a great time. And this was about, maybe about 3 or 4 days before my actual retirement party. So I didn't drink that much. I had a couple of beers, danced a lot. And so I was on the way home. And this was after midnight. I'm driving along, and I get to about just before the intersection of the 405 and the 110 freeways. And if you remember, in that general area, just maybe south on the 110, the Harbor Freeway, there was a highway patrol office. So all of a sudden, I noticed this highway patrolman behind me, just following me, probably at least 2 miles on the last couple miles of the 405 before I get off and go to the 110 south. Just before, no, just after I got onto the 110, he finally put on his lights and pulls me over. Actually, I was by an off ramp, so I went down the off ramp, stopped on the street, probably Main Street. At any rate, Jesus, you know, I had drank, but I was not drunk. I was not doing anything bad. But it kept going through my mind, oh shit, I'm gonna get, you know, drunk driving or something. What a way to start your retirement, no driver's license. And so he comes up and shines his light in my eyes. And I don't know if he told me to take off my glasses, or he took off my glasses, or my glasses were on. But he must have told me to take off my glasses, because my words back to him after showing him my license and stuff was, asked me if I've been drinking. I said, yeah, I had a couple of beers at least 2-3 hours before, because I was waiting for this drive home. And I said to him, knowing that, my eyes are going to cross, because I have cross eyes if I don't wear glasses on one of them. So I told him that story, that my eyes are going to cross, you know, that I'm not drunk, you know. And he didn't ask me to come out or get out of the car and walk, but he did shine the light on me. And so I guess he was pleased with everything. And he says to me, do you know why I pulled you over? And I go, no, why not? Well, I didn't have in-plant parking pass at work, but I had a temporary one for the last few days, so I could get my car into the plant, take home my 33 years of belongings home, probably some maybe I shouldn't have taken home. So I had an in-plant car pass for that. It hung from my rearview mirror.
Yeah.
And he said, that was too big. And that's why I pulled you over. And I thought to myself, yeah, right. You followed me for 2 miles to pull me over for that. He had to come up with some reason. Well, that was his reason. I was so thankful that that was as far as it went. And I could start my retirement without riding buses. But yeah, I don't know if that was a funny thing to say in later years, but it was not a funny thing while it was happening.
No.
Because by the way, I was working. I had often driven when I shouldn't have driven, and was extremely lucky. So here's this one time where I'm totally innocent and I get pulled over. So that's my retirement story. Oh, by the way,
Good
before I
going.
forget, I do have some sad news. Did any of you know Carol Yoshida? She was I think in seminar and things like that. She passed away within a month. Fortunately, that's the only person I know recently that has passed away, although I strongly suspect that a whole lot of people have passed away that I don't know about and we don't have any contact with.
You had said some months ago that Carl Olson's health was getting pretty bad. Any news on him?
He's had his I don't know about his general health. He looked very bad walking, etc., bow-legged and all that, coming to the last reunion. At that time, his reason was he needed knee surgery. Knees were very, very bad. I talked with Sylvia probably a couple weeks ago. That's how I found out about Carol. And I asked about Carl. And in fact, Carl's in the background on the phone. She was at his house. Apparently, he's had one operation on one of the knees, and shortly, or coming up, he'll have the other one. So I suspect that he'll probably be doing a lot better than he was. I don't know of any other health issues with him. So that's good. That's what I wanted to ask you. Is anybody know Lonnie Perdue?
I know
I
the
know the
name.
name.
Remember the name, but
I remember the name too, but I can look at my pylon, I still have them all. But was he in our class? I remember him from like a different class, maybe 62 or 64. But
I think
apparently,
he might have been in 62, but I may be wrong about that. I remember the name. I think he was older than us.
apparently Sylvia's been somewhat homeless for probably 20 to 25 years. And so she stays around with people. I guess they've dated from time to time out of, different states. She's trying to get back to Oklahoma.
Raleigh, he's right next to you in the pylon.
Huh.
Raleigh, I thought you graduated with us.
Oh.
And you did, because I see Gary
did.
Bennett, right? Is that
Okay.
Gary Bennett there too, Steve? Red-haired guy?
No, it's Lonnie Perdue, Raleigh Foff, Jeffrey Phillips, Mike Peterson.
Oh, okay. The one in the center kind of looked like.
So yeah, I'd never
Yeah,
had
but-
any classes with him, with Purdue, but I recognize the face. So,
I probably would have,
I'm gonna
but
guess-
I couldn't really see it on the screen.
It says he was football years 2 and 3, so that might have been an overlap for you, Don.
Yeah, I suspect if he didn't go on to 4, he probably played junior varsity.
Well, as I recall, he was pretty slight of build, so I would guess he might have been on the C team, maybe the B
Yeah.
team.
Probably he might have been on C's and maybe he could have had B exponents as a.
Yeah, as I recall, he was just a soft-spoken guy, one of the guys that was kind of in the background.
Mhm.
But I don't remember having any specific memories of him.
But the name is kind of one of those names that you remember,
Yeah.
Even
So,
though you can't.
Gary, did you have a retirement story?
Who? Me?
Did you have a retirement story?
Yeah, I've got two kind of retirement stories. One's more interesting than the other. So my actual retirement story was back in Michigan. I worked for Wolverine Worldwide Shoe Company. You've heard of Wolverine boots, you've heard of Merrell, you've heard of Saucony athletic footwear, Hush Puppies.
Yeah,
I
in
was
fact,
actually in the Hush Puppy
you
division.
procured some for me.
Yeah, I was in the Hush Puppy division and I was the sales manager for that that division, and I'd only been there 7 years, but basically all I got out of my retirement was they had a little get together in the office, and the director of marketing and bought me a cake, and they gave me this big giant plaque that hangs on my wall with a big hush puppy dog, and this CEO of the division gave me a nice letter telling me I was, how much I contributed to the brand and blah, blah, blah. But my more interesting retirement, which I didn't even realize was my retirement because it was way back when I was working for the May Company. And I'd been a buyer for about 5 years for the May Company. And this was, as a buyer, they didn't feel you had people management skills. So they needed to send you back out to the stores to manage department store managers, to develop your people management skills before you could get promoted to the next level. So they had sent me out to the Eagle Rock store, which I don't know, everybody know where Eagle Rock's at? Anyway, so it actually was the highest dollar per square foot producing store in the whole May Company chain. And I don't know if you all know, but the May Company, they call it the May Company in Southern California, but they had other divisions all over the country. There was Heck Company that was out of Baltimore, and there was a division in St. Louis, and there was a division in Boston. They had like 290 stores. So anyway, this was the highest producing. I mean, this store was only 2 levels, and it was crazy. And anyway, bottom line, the May Company used to do a charity thing every holiday season where they would collect cans of food for metropolitan LA that they would give to the poor or whatever. So they gave a challenge to each one of the stores to see who could collect the most canned food. And then the sponsors or whoever was chairing it for this food drive was Dennis Weaver and Valerie Harper. Everybody knows who they are, right?
Yeah.
And so just so happened, my Linda, she worked for a food broker. And basically what food brokers do, they represented different brands and whatever in grocery store chains. And if a can was dented or whatever, there was nothing wrong with it, but the grocery store made you take it out of the store and you took it back to a big warehouse. So anyway, my wife had access to lots of canned goods that were still good, but they couldn't be on the shelf. So I instigated her to say, hey, why don't you give us canned goods? So they were shipping over pallets of this stuff to the May Company Eagle Rock. So bottom line, we won the contest of collecting the most food. Well, one of the prize is that Dennis Weaver would come out to the stores and have a luncheon with us, with all the department managers and everyone. And I think he gave us a plaque or whatever. Well, it just so happened because I had taken like 2 years working out in the stores in management, and I just couldn't handle it anymore. I've been a buyer already for like 10, 15 years, and you were on your feet all day long. You're basically a floor manager. There was no excitement, nothing about it that I liked. Okay. In fact, I couldn't understand why the department managers would stay on with this, doing this job for year after year, because I mean, it was, just to give an example, in the 2 years between Thanksgiving and Christmas, I got 1 day off. Okay. And I worked 10 or 12-hour days. So I did that for 2 years. So bottom line, I said, I'm getting back into the shoe business. So I got a job in wholesale. So I was basically quitting the May Company at the same time we'd won this award. So the store manager, we were good friends. He says, well, this is going to be your retirement party. So so we had this big luncheon for winning this charity thing, and Dennis Weaver presented me with a gold watch that the May Company provided for retiring from the May Company. And that was my last day working for the May Company. But that was probably a bigger deal than my actual retirement party way many years later. But anyway, and Dennis, I don't know if you know Dennis Weaver. He's basically he was a vegetarian. He was very much environment. He was a real climate guy. I think he had some weird house that was made out of mud and straw or something or other. But I mean, he was a real nice guy. But that was, in fact, that was probably the closest I ever to meeting and talking to a movie star, quote unquote. So I have a picture of me getting a watch from Dennis Weaver.
Not bad.
I got my gold watch before I retired as well. Douglas had a tradition of giving a gold watch on your 30th anniversary. So I don't know what I got on my retirement. Oh, I know what I got. I'm sorry, I take that back. I didn't get any jewelry. I got a Boeing jacket, which I still wear when it's really, really cold. It's like a Letterman's jacket, but much thicker and everything, but leather on the sides. It's probably the warmest jacket I've ever had. It sits in the closet now because not a lot of snow where I'm at. Not a lot of opportunities to wear the jacket. So, what's Steve coming back with? I thought he was going to go get a jacket.
Yeah, I have a visual aid. You refresh my memory.
What?
I
Is
didn't
that a flash
retire. I
drive?
didn't retire from TRW. I left, but I had retirement benefits.
Oh,
At 15 years, this was the thing they gave you. It's a money clip.
oh, I thought it was a flash drive.
Yeah, right.
But
Well, no. But the thing that's kind of interesting about that is, given the date, this is 9/11.
Oh, yeah.
So I had left TRW. I had this with me. I was on travel for Los Alamos National Lab. We were installing a biodefense system around the country. I was on the team that was putting that out, and I flew into Detroit, another Michigan story. It was a bitterly cold winter day, and I was trying to get through the airport, and I had this thing with me, and it used to have, right now it's innocuous, but it used to have a tiny little blade in it.
Oh,
And this was 4 days after 9/11.
Wow.
So I couldn't get through airport security with the tiny little blade in there, even though I was there to protect our nation by deploying this biodefense system. So I manually neutered the frickin' thing and bent the knife until it broke out. So I have a damaged 15-year thing, but since it's 9/11, I thought I'd tell that story since it's kind of related.
you're lucky you went through security before 9/11.
Yeah.
You'd probably been in
listen.
jail now if it would have been after.
Look,
Yeah.
look, I found this. Can you see it?
Yeah.
They gave me
Wow.
this too.
Oh,
All
yeah,
right.
I got a clock too from Douglas, and mine stopped running.
Yeah, I don't think this ever ran. I know it says that, in recognition of 35 years of service, Harry Nieves. And that's the seal of the County of Los Angeles. So in addition to the Tony Bahama shirt, they gave me this thing, which is at the bottom of my closet right here.
Basic piece of crap. Yeah.
Well, it
That's
looks
right,
it
Gary.
looks
Now you-
nice.
you
It looks
spun my
like something
memory.
you see in one of these curio shops, but it doesn't keep time, and I don't need it. But it's nice they gave it to me.
Raleigh, you didn't
That's
tell a
what I
retirement
thought when I
story.
retired. I think my jacket was from the local flight test community, and the official jewelry was from the clock like that somewhere.
Uh-huh.
Well, Raleigh, did you have a retirement story?
Not really. I've had so many jobs that I didn't stay at any place long enough to get anything good. But when I did decide to retire from my last job as a tech writer, I talked to my boss, and she was a nice lady, and she said, "Well, how about if we lay you off, and that way you can get 6 months of unemployment insurance?" I said, "Great." So she laid me off, and I got another 6 months of pay, so that was good. Can't
Sounds,
complain.
sounds way better than this piece of crap.
Yeah, better than a clock.
Yeah,
Give me
yeah,
the 6 months of money every time.
yeah,
Wow.
I'll take that versus plaques and watches and all this other stuff.
We had a really good deal when I retired from Los Alamos. They gave very generous vacation benefits. I think we had like, when you went in the door the first day, you got 5 weeks of vacation.
Wow.
Mhm.
Well, it's 24 days, but almost 5 weeks. But the deal was, if you didn't take it, you could keep accumulating year after year after year. It didn't go away, and you
Yep.
could use it towards service credit when you retired. And so I didn't get 6 months of pay like Raleigh did, but I got 6 months of vacation benefit added to my time of service, which has been worth thousands of dollars.
Did,
Not a bad
did,
deal.
Yeah,
did any of you get this deal? I didn't even know about this when I retired. I think it's 60, I don't know, whatever I think it was a little bit past 65, whatever it was. I think I was 66. I was trying for 67, but I didn't make it there because they forced me to retire. But for whatever reason, when I retired, they said, okay, this is how much Social Security going to get. But then when I went down to the office or whatever, they said, okay, well, you get an extra bonus or something or other. But anyway, right off the bat, they sent me an extra $11,000 for, I guess, because it was past, I'd done more than the single benefit, but they just said, okay, well, you did 6 months more or whatever time it was, and so you're eligible for a one-time allotment of $11,000. And I was kind of blown away. Well, I wasn't expecting that. I don't even remember what it was all about.
Yeah, I think when I retired, I hadn't taken a day of sick leave in about 18 years.
Oh, yeah.
And I had like 3 weeks or 4 weeks vacation. I would only take like 2 weeks or so. And what was interesting about that was then you could cash that in, all that sick leave time and vacation time. And I was told that the county had applied to the IRS for some type of deferment on taxes if you put that in a specific fund that the county had set up. So I did that, and and then I get a letter from the county about 6 months later that the IRS had ruled against the county and that such would be taxable. And so I got in touch with whatever plan I had invested in, because I said, I'm going to have to cough up a couple of $1,000 here. And they said that because you had applied between this time period and what I had done, I delayed my retirement like two or 3 months because of this to qualify for it. But they said because I had done it on such and such date before the ruling came down, you were grandfathered in. So you don't have to pay IRS taxes on that, and you could keep it in the investment fund. So I lucked out on that way.
Yeah, I retired at 54, and I did it in such a way that was during one of the many cycles of Douglas laying off people. So I retired, and because I had like a 6 months, 6 months of, I forget all the details, but I had like years added to my retirement, not to get me up to a standard 65 or anything, but more retirement, what's the current, years of service, got a bunch of money. I remember Cobra being, I think that had to do with insurance, but I retired at the right time. I was not having fun anymore at work, and I was able to live until I got Social Security. So I remember I had a boss, he retired, still have a very good friend of his. He's gonna be 91 shortly. But we became very good friends. And I always remember he retired at 54 also. So I wanted to do as well as him. And I probably not financially as well, but I've done okay. But at least I was able to retire at the same age as he did.
Well, Don, you and I will understand this. You never know what's going to happen, right?
Right.
Just think if you had not retired early, the years you would have lost because your wife was gone. This is what I'm thinking, my wife retired 2 years after I did, and we had 12 years together. And there's some people that just retired 2 years and then their wife is gone or they're gone and they never got to enjoy it. So at least I had about 12, 13, 14 years to enjoy with Elaine.
Very important.
Yeah.
The other, and this is hopefully not as sad, but I remember as I was getting closer to retirement, thinking about it, and many people that I knew retired ahead of me, older people, and it seemed like those that had outside activities or really vested interests, they retired and probably still be alive. Those that just kind of would go home and sit on the porch, they were the ones that passed away pretty soon after retirement.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, their job is their life.
Yeah.
We used to see a lot of that at Los Alamos. People just got used to people thinking that they were irreplaceable.
Mm-hmm.
They would just hang on forever, and they would stifle promotions, and it was a terrible situation. But the other side of that argument was exactly as Don was describing. These people would retire and die the next week.
Yeah, they didn't have a new life to go on to.
Yeah.
There's a interesting theory I have is if you're with a county a long, long time like I was, once you hit 55 and you stay with the county, you accumulate a lot more retirement benefits or income 56, 57, 60, 62, 63, 64, let's say. There's a tremendous difference between 55 and 60. So I figure it's this because I've seen it, is that they give you these incentives to stay longer. So when you retire, you'll be dead and not collect the profits. You're thinking you're accumulating. And it's an incentive for you to die on the job.
Well, we should bring our valedictorian, Randy Brubaker, in, who was an actuarial, and see if there's some truth to what you're saying. I think you're right, Harry.
If we could find him.
Oh, is he lost?
He's been lost
for a long
years.
time, hasn't he?
Yeah, 30 years or more. He came to our 20th reunion, I think, or something like that. And that's the last I saw of him. I just wondered, and he sat way in the back of the room, I remember. Didn't talk to him too much at that night. But yeah.
Somebody told me, I think it was Tom Hawley the last time I saw him, or one of the last times I saw him. I guess he was pretty close to Randy Brubaker. He told me that Randy used to come to school drunk.
Oh yeah, his senior year, Randy was an alcoholic, no doubt about it. I only know it from the senior year in the last few months. Yep. Yep.
Wasn't the rumor he had a photographic memory?
Well, maybe, I don't know if it was a rumor or real, but he was a smart dude. By the way, I have a Tom Hawley story. It's okay, but it was kind of sad in a way. If I told you this, say no. I mean, tell me. We went, Peggy and I, she's a lady I'm seeing, we went to dinner with Tom and Judy a few months ago now, maybe 3 months ago, something like that. And we went to a nice restaurant. It's out in La Mirada or somewhere like that, called, I forgot, a very neat restaurant. So anyway, Afterwards, we went to Peggy's house for dessert and coffee, talk some more. Oh, and Donna McLaughlin's with us. She had come down. So we're sitting there, or not sitting there, we had a very nice talk, conversation. So we're getting up to leave. And Peggy has this little, maybe a 6-inch step from her living room to her entryway going down. And then another one down to a family room. So Peggy has this Peggy was really into, and I'm going to say tens of thousands, if not more, dollars of original movie posters. It had one of Elvis Presley of one of his movies in her family room. And so Tom, I was coming out, we were literally walking to the door. And I said to Tom, hey, Tom, someone came into conversation, there's the picture or the poster we were talking about. And he turned around, no, he was turning around and he fell back off of the 6-inch step backwards, and he hit his back on a corner of a end table or something like that. Her house isn't small, but she's put every bit of furniture you could find anywhere, any little cubicle. She has a piece of furniture. He hit his back on that, and that ended the whole night. But it turned out that he had the story changes. He either cracked 5 ribs or broke 5 ribs, and he was in the hospital for a few days,
Wow.
a couple, 3 months. And Peggy barely just met them, barely had just invited them over her house. She was devastated. And Judy was obviously extremely worried, although she was nice about it. But it could have been, it's okay now. But Tom, like all of us, is getting a little older. He played catcher on the baseball team. When you play catcher, your knees go. But he's never had a knee replacement. But you can kind of tell he struggles a bit on his knees. But anyway, I don't know why I got into that. Somebody said something.
Well, I'm going to just say one thing. Have any of you guys had hip replacements?
No, all mine are old. I mean, I have all my original parts. I still even have my tonsils.
Yeah, well, I do too. But anyway, just an FYI, if you ever have to have a hip replacement or you can get a hip replacement, get it. Because I suffered for like 3 or 4 years with a bad left hip, and I had the hip replaced, and it's wonderful. It's not a tough surgery. It really isn't. It's the recovery. Number one, if you have it in the morning, you'll be walking out of the hospital at 4 o'clock in the afternoon with a walker. They don't like, you have to be able to walk out of the hospital. And the recovery time, it's probably 2 or 3 months when you're back to 100%. But I've
Why
been
did
told
you
it's
suffer
much
for
better.
3 or
It's
4
easy.
years?
It's much easier than a knee replacement. Actually, knees are tougher than hips. But just an FYI, if it ever happens, if you need a good surgeon. So, but this guy, he was amazing. He did 3 hip surgeries in one day. He had 3 operating rooms in the same hospital. He finished with me, went to the next one, and went to the next one. He did a ton of them. But and then my next thing is, you're talking about, retiring and dying and whatever. My theory, and is, of course, I might drop dead tomorrow, but once you retire, move it or lose it. You got to keep moving. If you just, I mean, I go and exercise 5 days a week in the morning, and I'll sit around or do something on the weekends and not exercise. And I'm just wanting to get back to doing some kind of exercise on Monday, because if I just sit in the chair for 2 hours, I'm like, I look like a crippled old man trying to walk around. So
Which
anyway,
we have today. Almost
that's
11
for
o'clock.
whatever it's worth. That's my words of wisdom for the day.
Same thing. Everybody that talks to me tells me that. Even
You
my
know-
friend who's 91. So he
Well-
still kayaks.
The sad thing is, probably our most talented, intelligent, all-around individual we've ever known was Gerald Miwa.
Yeah,
And once he retired, he did everything. He went whitewater rafting.
right.
He was a volunteer professor. He took cooking classes. You know, everything they tell you to keep active, he did. And then he drops dead. So here's an alternate theory. Maybe our brains and our bodies are like batteries. You use them too much, they wear out. Everybody's chemistry is different, but
Yeah.
when I think about all these things people say and being active, I always think of, sadly, I think of, because I loved him so much, is Gerald, that
Yeah,
he was
true.
he was the best and the brightest of all of us. And he did everything right, and he's gone.
Yeah, you're right.
No, live every
My
day like
philosophy-
it's your last.
My philosophy is the nice ones go first, which is why I'm still around, you know.
I guess I came up with my philosophy because basically in my work life, I was sat around on my butt about 80% of the time, sitting in a desk, doing this and doing that, didn't move around. I really didn't start moving around until I did retire. So you know, it's
Well, at least you hadn't worn out your parts before retirement.
yeah, they're getting worn out now though. But anyway,
Now, speaking of going home the same day, Steve, Judy just had her hip replaced, one of them, and she went home the same day.
Yeah.
And she is not. This is a friend of Steve and mine, not Judy Best. She has a low tolerance of pain, but she's getting better now.
yeah,
Good. Glad to hear it. Yeah, because she had gotten pretty immobile.
Yeah.
yeah. You can't really sleep in bed probably for a couple of weeks. I had to sleep in my my recliner because getting in and out of bed is difficult. But like I say, you would think of a hip replacement that you're going to be laid up for months, and it's not the case. So
I think whether it's hips or knees today, both are pretty routine.
yeah. And the other
Yeah, I
night,
agree.
Don, you're talking about YouTube. So when
Yeah.
I found out I was going to have this operation, you can go out. I watched the whole surgery done by a surgeon down in Phoenix. I mean, the whole thing, I watched it, the whole hip, because they even have a special operating table for hips so they can, that's another thing about YouTube. However curious you are about what's going to happen, different things, it's all out there on YouTube.
Right.
So it's,
Okay, we're running out of time. I got a couple viewing things. I want to thank Gary. You made a recommendation a few months ago for The Tourist. We watched the first year and we're in the second one now, and it's been entertaining.
okay.
Harry, I want you to look for a Geico commercial that's on TV, because I swear to God that you're in it. It's
What
got
is
you
it,
jumping
Steve?
at multiple levels in a parking structure and running underneath a car, and I swear it's you. And then we've been watching.
I've seen it. I've seen it.
Have you?
Isn't it a father and a son?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
I
who am
swear to
I?
God, it's you.
Which one is me? The father or the son?
Which one do you want to be?
I looked like the kid. I don't think I ever looked like the father. When
I think you look like the father.
Well, anyway, whatever. Okay, thanks.
You haven't looked in the mirror lately. Okay, and there's a show on Apple TV that's kind of fun. It's one of these alternate history things. It's called For All Mankind. It's about the space program.
Oh,
And it's kind of what would have happened if the Russians had beat us to the moon, and how that would have changed the events of life. But the reason I'm bringing that up in this context is that the end of year number 3, it turns out the North Koreans beat everybody to Mars. And there's a guy who's there, and he shouldn't have survived, but he does survive. America and Russia finally get there, and when they get there, they have a crisis, and they start looking around, and they say, well, North Korea sent up a probe that had some parts that we can salvage to solve our problem. They go over to the site, and they discover this guy. Well, the guy they discover when you take the mask off is a ringer for Gerald Miwa.
There he's that's his heaven. He's in heaven in the far side of the moon.
Could be. Anyway, I want to get those things out there so you can look for our friends on TV.
Well, we've been here a couple hours.
Okay.
I don't know
It's-
what month we're due next. We couldn't just have it every other month. It's got to be some lunar thing or whatever. But I know we have an email that says the next one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Royal has a list and he sent it.
If I did everything right, we videoed this. Unfortunately, we didn't see anything too bad. I will send it to the guys and a link to it. It'll be a YouTube link. That's what I
Okay.
typically do. So hopefully it'll come out and they'll get to
Okay.
understand.
See you guys,
what we
see you guys
talked
in a couple of months. Stay healthy.
about. Yeah. See you.
Yeah, everybody stay healthy. Take care of
Right.
yourself. Good
Okay.
talking to you.
Okay.
All right.
Talk to you later.
Goodbye, everyone.
See you, Harry.
If I can figure out how to do this.
How do I turn it off?
Just go anywhere you want.
Just hit X up on the right hand.